For me here, right off the bat, setup position wise, two things I don't like. I believe your upper body is bent over a little bit too far forward. This gets your hands actually stuck inside your shoulder line because your shoulder lines are so far out in front of you. Not really crazy about that. Ideally, I like to see the hands a little bit more directly under the shoulders. This can happen if we just get our upper body's position a little bit taller to kind of pull the shoulders back. And then the second thing is a little too much anterior pelvic tilt. And really what that means is you see this concave look in your lower back there. Really that happens because the rear end sticks out too much, and that lowers the front end of the pelvis and raises the back end. And that actually puts a bunch of pressure on your lower back, but also tends to get your rear end too far behind you, and that actually makes it really difficult to rotate. So not only is it not ideal for a player long term in terms of like physical health, it can put a lot of stress on the lower back, but just in general, it's not the most ideal way to set up to a ball. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to level out your pelvis and tuck it under you a little bit better and stand just a little bit more upright. Nothing extreme, but certainly slightly more upright than where you are here is going to go a long way for you. From there, your biggest concern, in my opinion, believe it or not, is really just the amount of depth you get to your hands at the top of your backswing, in my opinion. I believe your lead arm gets a little too upright and not nearly behind you enough at the top. Your hands are lacking in what we call depth. Depth basically means how far back do the hands go. The reason why I say this, you mentioned that you are trying to shallow the club via forearm rotation in transition. Now, while I don't disagree with that as a concept, your club is a little bit more across the line, which typically means your lead arm, so your left arm's forearm is going to be rotated a little bit more to the left in order to get to this position. So, of course, trying to rotate it open to the right would, in theory, help you to shallow the club more. I don't disagree with that as a concept. The problem is you already shallow the club plenty. In fact, even though your club looks steep, I would argue none of that has to do with the actual shallowing of the club. And this is an area where many people go wrong, in my opinion. So look at the alignment of your club here. Look at how much your club already changed direction at the start of your downswing. So there's a big reroute here where the club is getting progressively more shallow. So now the shaft is in this position, and then it continues to get more shallow. Now it's in this position and then continues to get more shallow. So by all accounts, your shaft's alignment, right, is actually gradually getting more and more behind you, which in theory is a good thing. That's what we want in the golf swing. So why would you be hitting pulls, and why does your club still look steep between the two forearms here, despite the fact that you are rerouting that club plenty? For me, this is once again a hand depth issue. Hand depth, just to repeat, from the top of the backswing, the further back behind you your hands are, the deeper they are. The more in front of you the hands are, the less deep they are. You are lacking in that variable. You are lacking in hand depth. When you look at where your hands are here, they're very much over like the balls of your feet at this point, as opposed to being aligned a little bit more over the heels, which is more ideal for someone whose hand path moves outward in transition. If your hand path is going to move outward in transition, you need space for them to move outward without getting too far out in front of your body. If they start from a position that's not very deep, they're typically better off having a little bit more vertical drop to them. If they start a little bit deeper, so a little bit more in line with the heels of your feet, then they can afford to move outward more. When you are somebody who has the hands that are in not that deep of a position, which is yours, and then they move outward really aggressively, you get in a situation where by the time your left arm is parallel to the ground here, your hands get way too far out in front of you. This is the reason why you hit pulls. Your path is working too far left, in my opinion. It's very clearly because of a lack of hand depth. If we took this exact same shaft alignment that looks like it's kind of on the steeper end, right? If you look at the club, it's actually coming down on top of your right shoulder. By all accounts, it looks steep. But we took this exact same position, and then all we did was move the hands further back, and we assumed that they were deeper. And then we give you the exact same parallel position to the shaft. Doesn't that look a lot more shallow and more from the inside? Right? So it's not the angle or the pitch of the shaft. Once again, you take this exact same shaft angle and you just get it more behind you because the hands were deeper, you would look like you're coming from way more from the inside. Case in point, why you hit pulls. Your hands get too far in front of you, it causes the path to get too far left, and then you end up pulling it from there. So it's actually quite an easy fix. Once we clean up a little bit of the setup details to protect your back long term and also just make it easier to rotate, we're just going to try to get the hand path a little bit deeper, and we'll actually get the club coming down on a shallower plane and solve your pulls pretty much instantly.